Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course you good old boys from the Big C tribe in Africa. Thank you for African listening out. I think they listen from the pyramids, Big C. But you still, we love the good old boys up in Canada, but there's still no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
We're traveling moving along quite peacefully down here today. It's a quiet day in the south. Nobody crossing the animal crossing.
Yeah.
Traffic-wise, so I had to go through a drive-through window to get dinner tonight.
I'm sorry, Big Z. I know you don't feel good having to eat that food that's not fresh out of the fields. I understand how you feel, Big Z. I do want to say that today is beautiful. It is October the 19th, 2017, in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. And Big C, I know we got a few things to talk about, but we've been talking about these Animal Crossing signs, and obviously California's having some fires, and you hear a lot of overhead fighter jets flying over and putting the retardant on the fires to get the fires to go down. They're expecting rain in Northern California tonight, and we got the Raiders and Chiefs kicking off. But I do got to go back a little bit last night to the Golden One Center, the debut of the Sacramento Kings at home versus the Houston Rockets that just came off of their kind of last-second win against Golden State. And I was watching one of the sports channels that run TV commercials right before the game started, and they didn't have an Animal Crossing sign, but they did have a crosswalk sign that they ironically were debuting for the opening of the Golden West Center. Never saw that before, Big C. Your thoughts?
It's amazing how many broadcast companies and stations and broadcasters emulate what they do.
Yeah.
Because they have these national platforms and they have these production crews and everything to go along and scout to see what everyone else is doing and saying.
Oh, yeah.
To make their scripts for their shows. And for the past years, we have been witnessing this, Charlton, the plagiarism, up and down. I think everybody understands those scripts. We're all talking about the same stuff to a degree.
Yeah.
But to have the scripts that we have, we've had Julio Jones out fishing for catfish on a boat, which nobody does in the middle of a big so many things that we've talked about come to fruition in broadcast television.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And now we're even getting it, in radio, we're getting the same.
Yeah.
We touched on it in our year and a half of broadcast. It's never been touched in this industry.
Yeah.
But now everybody's crossing over politics and the sports talking and saying, we were just a sports station. That's all we want to talk about is just a sports. It's such an amazing feeling to be a trailblazer.
Yeah.
And to have so many people appreciate your work that they have to plagiarize it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about the mothership, whether we're talking about the new, pop-up show on the other network, that has several sports stations talking.
Yeah.
And even radio across the country.
Yeah.
Because so many people listen because we're out there on the internet and we're out there on a major broadcast network, Charlton.
Yeah.
I feel honored that people want to plagiarize your good and my work on a daily basis.
Yeah, and the shame about it, too, is they know that people in California, they don't use crosswalks. Basically, they were all crossing the street. Unlike the animals that use the crosswalk sign, Animal Crossing sign, I think about that every time I head up to Tahoe where they got these Animal Crossing signs. I do want to say that today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, we love the sports business. We love so many things going on. But I love politics also. And I respect the White House. It was designed by African Americans back in the day, Big C. And I do want to say that General Kelly, White House Chief of Staff, had a lot of things to say about respect for our fallen soldiers that Donald Trump doesn't understand, and how you should also respect women. It's amazing how conspicuously absent Donald Trump was when he was talking about that. Big C, your thoughts?
I had the utmost praise for General Kelly, former four-star General Charlton, who lost his son in 2010 in the Afghan War. But, he never tried to publicize his son for political gain.
No.
Donald Trump threw his son under the bus, Charlton, literally. He utilized this American hero as a pedestal for his own political gain, Charlton. He politicized this young man's death by saying, ask General Kelly. General Kelly You know, you think about it, it's been 6-7 years since his son's passing.
Yeah.
He never once came out and made a public statement about it. But Donald Trump, in his haste to go out and blame everybody else for his ineptness in the leadership role of America, has taken him, you know, when he blasted Mr. Johnson yesterday on the news, he didn't even know the lady's name.
No.
But that's the sad part. He didn't know her first name, he didn't know her last name.
Yeah.
He's just saying that woman. Think about it. You just lost your husband.
Yeah.
In a war that we should not even be in. And you're saying that woman. You know, you didn't even have the dignity or the respect to even ask
to find out.
At least put a post-it up in front of you so that you know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to assume that the conversation on the phone went the same way, because if he could not remember her name the next day, he didn't know her name the day that he called her, Charles.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
that's a shame.
General Kelly to come out and say that we have lost the dignity of our military respect, starting back in the convention, the Republican convention.
Yeah.
That's when, you know, Trump at that time blasted Gold Star family members.
Yeah.
Members who had lost their children in this war. They're the American icons and heroes.
Yeah.
He has no respect for them, Charles. And then, you know, with his accolades and negativity that he is spewing about himself, knowing everything.
Yeah.
And then coming out disrespecting Kelly, as well as other prominent military families, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you know, it even came out in the news yesterday that he had promised this one family $25,000 to the father of this falling soldier.
Yeah.
Back in April, Charlton. Back in April.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And he had not sent any money to this man after promise. This is the president of the United States.
Yeah.
Once it broke in the Washington Post, he was quick to cut a check.
Oh, yeah.
The check is in the mail now.
Yeah.
4 months later, the check was finally in the mail.
Yeah.
But, you know, this has been unprecedented. But, you know, General Kelly said, you know, the disrespect for women from the leadership of America is gone. And he was speaking about Donald Trump and the statements that he has made against women and against women and the acts that he has acted against women, Charlton.
Yeah.
General Kelly, without saying his name, spoke directly about the president of the United States, because he sees this man every day.
Yeah.
And he basically said he was disgusted and appalled without utilizing his name.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it too. And you brought up Kelly, you know, Chief of Staff General Kelly, but I also go back to Megyn Kelly. And sometimes, see, women put up with so much garbage, and they're abused every 20 seconds somewhere in the country. And most of it happens by other men, and probably men that know them, not some stranger jumping out of a bush, but people that know them. And the fact that he had that hatred for Megyn Kelly, said that she's bleeding out of body parts or bleeding out of other things, that's piggish behavior. So I just wonder why some women still say that's okay. If any woman in the workforce were approached by a man who grabbed her by the vagina and say, don't worry about it, it's just locker room behavior, come on, I'm just playing, you know, Donald Trump does it, you probably get it sued. Not only would you get a sexual harassment lawsuit filed against you, you lose your job, Big C. But the audacity of some of those same women who would file a sexual harassment lawsuit that actually voted for that knucklehead, they've tacitly consented to other women being sexually assaulted. Whether they think they can or not get away from it, if I see a man that's abusing women and grabbing them by the vagina in the workforce, and I say, well, you know, we can't get bad at Donald, he doesn't know any better, he was raised that way, then I'm complicit in the sexual assault. So for every woman that gets on programs like CNN or Fox News and they want to atone for Trump, they want to apologize for him, you know, just go right to your daughters and tell them that any man can grab them by the vagina because you condone it. You condone it when it happens to other women. What do they say to their own daughters when it happens to their own kids? Maybe some of them don't mind when it happens to them, Big C. That make any sense?
Well, Charles, I got to think about the Republican women that are in Congress and that are in the Senate.
Yeah.
They condone and back this man with his word.
Yep.
Because that's what they're doing. They're saying they're an advocate of his.
Yeah.
Because what he says and what he does is okay.
Yep.
And so if he was to walk into their house for dinner, if he was ever invited over, and their granddaughter was in there, and he said, hey, you know, she's a good-looking girl. I feel like going and putting my tongue in her mouth. Let me put in a tic tac.
Yeah.
And then grab it on her, groping on her body.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable? Would that be acceptable in your house as a politician?
To some women, yes, Big C.
I guess it would, Charles,
yeah.
Because they have not, you know, they've condoned his words and actions.
Yeah.
They have not spoken out against him, said it was unacceptable.
No.
But even another part that I want to go to, Charlton, while we're here on this, and I know the sports and politics. When I played, Charlton, we had a policy and a conduct between the players and the cheerleaders, that there was a contract of no fraternizing.
Yeah.
A cheerleader could not fraternize with a player, nor could we fraternize with a cheerleader.
Yeah.
So the respect was there to not cross over those boundaries, Charlton, to get anybody in peril.
Yeah.
Because that was just part of the agreement of athletics. So when people say that athletics and politics don't match,
yeah,
well, they do in many ways. But back on this subject here with Kelly and Trump. 4 years ago, Ambassador Stevens
yeah,
in Benghazi, along with 3 contract workers,
yeah,
were killed in the embassy in Benghazi.
Yeah.
We heard about that for 4 years, okay? 4 years.
Yeah.
From Fox News and then candidate Trump.
Yeah.
That's all we heard about. How Hillary Clinton had these men and did not help them, okay?
Yeah.
There was no aid sent. Now, I'm looking at the same scenario with these soldiers, Charlton, in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Why were they in Nigeria? Why were they not given more aid? Why were they not backed up on their mission, Charlton? Why did they not have air cover?
Yeah.
This is Trump's legacy, okay?
Yeah.
How will Fox News put a spin on this? How will they say that how will Fox News say that the president or the Secretary of State, which is Rex Tillerson,
yeah,
allow these 4 men to be killed?
Yeah.
Out in no man's land without protection. This is the comparison, Charlton. How will Fox News do that? I mean, loss of life in military is never
yeah,
a thing to politicize, Charlton. But you had a side of our government, the Republicans, as well as Fox News as their constituent,
yeah,
politicize the death of 4 Americans in Benghazi for 4 years.
Yeah.
Saying that it was Hillary Clinton's fault. Now that this same scenario has occurred with President Trump,
yeah,
that we have 4 military men out in the middle of a desert with no protection, with no backup, Charlton, with
Yeah.
no air cover. How will Fox News cover this? Will it be just, go water under the bridge?
Oh, we already know.
For 4 years, we
Yeah.
heard about Benghazi.
yeah,
How long will we hear about what happened in Nigeria with these 4 brave Americans that were left out there without any protection, Charlton?
Big C, that's a very good point, and we know how they're going to handle that. That's why they're just illegitimate news story. What he calls fake news. He's talking about his friends over there that have that network. Rupert Murdoch could be ashamed of himself. But I do want to touch on one more thing too. It's always important with the weekend coming up with football and basketball tipping off, and it's like a sports. What do they call that when you good old boys get down? You have a lot of food and you tell people bring their own wet.
We call it
Be your own M. What's that? Bring your own moonshine. Is that how you good old boys get down? See? Well, I do want to I don't want to let go of this rope with the Doug Baldwin and Commissioner Roger Goodell in the NFL crafting that letter to Congress for criminal justice reform, because that's the end of the rainbow. When people kept saying, well, what's this all about? We got to end this. We got to have people start standing up. What's it really all about? It's about when a white man and a black man get the same treatment in the courts. It's about when they're sending as many white kids to prison as they do black kids for minor offenses. That's what it's about, ending that garbage. It's about ending this racial divide that we have in this country from law enforcement where we get racially profiled. So when a white man can't get into his fine car and drive into his nice neighborhood and get without being pulled over, that doesn't happen to a lot of people. We want black Americans to experience the same thing. Big C, I know why you keep that Escalade all dirty. You don't want people to think you got a lot of stuff to go home to. And it kind of hides the deer and all that venison you got in the back, Big C. But on a serious note, we know from the days of Jim Crow and the days of the antebellum days, from slavery to the civil rights movement, and all those days in between, even for you knucklehead people, you can see pictures of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which John Lewis was beaten. A lot of civil rights people marched. They were beaten. They were trying to integrate the schools. George McGovern said never have integration. Segregation now is segregation forever. And Donald Trump actually believed them, and a lot of other good old boys believed that garbage. But that's what we're talking about, Big C. So it's not about putting up with this for a year or two. We've been putting up with this garbage for damn near 400 years, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, former President Bush number 43 spoke so eloquently on it today to talk about the bigotry that's led through the leader of our country today.
Yeah.
He spoke directly to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Saying that the bigotry, the racism, the divisiveness, the social abuse and injustice
Yeah.
that is going on towards minorities and women in America,
Yeah.
the lack of respect. This is what former President Bush spoke about today, and he was honored at West Point.
Yeah.
But he spoke directly to the current sitting president, Charlton. He didn't have to mention his name.
Yeah.
But everyone knew what he was talking
Yeah.
is how we are being more divisive as a country now than we had in 100 years.
Yeah.
Mike Dicker talked about he hadn't seen any, social injustice in 100 years.
Yeah.
Oppression.
Yeah.
But, former President Bush even could come out and speak on it. And this is where we are as a country.
Yeah.
Is that whether we're looking at sports, whether we're looking at the layman world,
Yeah.
is that everybody now is talking about this. And it's like when you talked about the commissioner, Doug Baldwin,
Yeah.
crafting the letter, wanting social reform. This is what social reform and equality is not in America, Charleston. You think about it, right now everybody's talking about we have an opiate epidemic
Yeah.
in America, okay?
Yeah.
Is anybody talking about locking these people up?
No.
They know who the drug dealers are, Charleston.
Yeah.
It's not a secret.
Suburban kids.
Opiate drug dealers are in America. There's
Yeah.
pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
And the pharmacists who are writing out these illegal subscriptions, Charleston.
Yep.
Prescriptions. But, when you think about it, when there was a crack epidemic in America in the 80s,
Yeah.
let's lock them up. What Nancy Reagan said, just say no.
Just say no.
Say no.
Yeah.
No one is saying just say no to opiates. They said yes because there's money in there.
Yep.
There's legal money transpiring over the counter because we're selling you illegal drugs.
Yeah.
Opiates, think about it. I'm trying to remember, Charleston, the last time they had a call for somebody overdosing on marijuana in America, okay?
That's a good point.
My mind, like I said, I'm not a very smart man, and I don't remember everything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to recall. Maybe I can Google it. The last time that somebody overdosed on marijuana in America, okay?
Hey, big.
That's what we're not talking about.
That's a good point. You bring up the mind. Two good old boys from back in the day, Cheech and Chong, Up in Smoke. They had a couple of movies, and I was a young boy. I didn't understand all the comedy behind it until I got older. But whether it's guys like Snoop Dogg or some people in the rock and roll industry, we all know people do what they want to do, but it's nice to keep people treated the same.
And not to interrupt,
Yeah.
Cheech Marin, Charleston, it was part of that movie script with Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
He spent 11 years in a federal prison in Corcoran, California.
Really?
For having marijuana paraphernalia. He's yet to be released. He should be released in 2018.
Wow.
He got 11 years in Corcoran for marijuana. Now, you tell me how many courtrooms are lying in America, Charleston, with white Americans that are utilizing these opiates, okay?
Yeah.
They're talking about sending them to rehab.
Yeah.
Getting them help because it's a medical crisis. Think about it. Opiates are a medical crisis. Opiates is what heroin is, Charleston.
Yeah.
It's what morphine is. That's opiates. And so marijuana is nowhere near the drug. People commit crimes
Yeah.
to get opiates, Charleston.
Yeah.
They kill people. They rob people. They care less about human life, Charleston.
Yeah.
Marijuana people go to sleep. They may go to fall asleep in Taco Bell line. Or
Yeah, that's true. You know, when you bring that point up,
epidemic, Charleston, is
Yeah.
killing America. But think about it. It was sanctioned by white Congress, Charleston,
Yeah.
who pushed it through in 2016 because the pharmaceutical industry spent $180 million on lobbyists and wooing congressmen and senators to vote and pass this bill. Matter of fact, the guy that Trump had nominated as a drug czar was the one who wrote the bill. Think about
Wow.
it. You're nominating a drug czar who wrote the opiate bill in America right now that's allowing all these people to become addicts. And 600,000 Americans, Charleston, think about this. They don't tell this story. 600,000 Americans have died since that bill has been written into law.
Wow. And for the most part, they're white Americans. It's a shame. And we don't care what color somebody is. All people are created in the equal and according to the universe or the eyes of God, if you believe in that too. So we just want everyone treated the same. But I want to bring up, before we touch on a little bit of sports, you talk about the marijuana situation going on. There's about $400 billion generated in the United States in revenue. I don't know who counted the people since it wasn't taxable for the most part. But I think Anheuser-Busch has a plant in the South Bay here in San Jose, 1 million square feet for marijuana. Okay, that's Budweiser or Anheuser-Busch.
Is that the real bud?
Hey, I guess it's the real bud, Big C. But there's a good substance in it called THC that a lot of doctors use to help cure epilepsy and other issues too. There's also another facility, you can Google this too, it's in the Boston area on the East Coast, another 1 million square foot facility. So to have a gentleman from Cheech and Chong sitting in jail down in California for doing the same thing. These good old corporations have built million square foot facilities. Donald Trump's not trying to shut them down. I mean, that's a good point too, Big C. I'm glad you brought that up. Hopefully they can get him out of there. I do want to say that sports is a $1 billion industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this $1 billion industry. And for every sport and event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around for half a century. They work with Big C Sports. We cover pro teams, your collegiate teams, your high school teams, even your mom and pop soccer leagues. When you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. Big C, tonight we have some great things happening in the world of basketball. Carmelo Anthony, you know, he's won so many Olympic gold medals for the United States of America. Here's a man that has played for the United States of America Olympic basketball team, and he's also a part of the people who started to speak out against, you know, Black Lives Matter, speak out forward. And it's culminating with Roger Goodell, and I'm so proud of him as a white man, because most of them say nothing, working with Doug Baldwin to get something in front of Congress. That's what it's all about. It's about the law, not about taking a knee if you don't go to the law. Got to always use the law. But Carmelo Anthony also, does he have a lot left of his tank? It's always nice when you go to a new team. But Russell Westbrook's not going to pass on the ball, Big C. Your thoughts?
Carmelo Anthony doesn't have the pressure on him. He's a tremendous scorer. He's the number 3 all-time leading average scorer in NBA.
Wow.
29.5 points a game for his career.
Yeah.
And you think about his productivity in the Olympics when he's playing with other all-stars, Charlton.
Yeah.
That he has led the Olympics twice in scoring for America.
Yeah.
The last 2 Olympics and gold medal victories.
Yeah.
And now that he's with a team with Paul George and Russell Westbrook, even though Russell was the MVP of the league last year, you got to kind of look at, you know, Russell from this perspective. When he takes the Steph Curry angle, Charlton,
yeah,
I know I'm the MVP, but I brought in a guy that could score,
yeah,
and not have to be forced with the basketball. That's what he did when he deferred to Kevin Durant when he went to the Warriors.
Yeah.
But now Russell has 2 stars that have come to the team that have been the leading scorers on their respective teams in the past, Charlton.
Yeah.
And now he understands. I think not it's not just he and a Durant in a competition, but it's a trifecta.
Yeah.
Is that I don't have to have the ball in my hand all the time, forcing situations.
Yeah.
This will make Russell Westbrook a much better player, Charlton, as far as having opportunities for better shots, not forcing shots.
Yeah.
Because they can run that triangle offense, spread the floor, Charlton, because you have 3 perimeter shooters.
Yep.
That are all-stars.
That's a good point.
Will open up the lane more for Russell if they pull Adams out of the middle. But I like having Carmelo, who still has a very point jump shot, Charlton.
Yeah.
18 to 20 feet from the perimeter.
Yeah.
He can still knock down the 3, and we know that Paul George, what he can do other than hit a game-winning shot.
That's a very good.
It could be a very solid team. That you think about it, you got the 3 best teams in the NBA with the Rockets, the Warriors, and OKC.
Yeah.
They're all much better than Cleveland, but those are the 3 best teams in the NBA.
That's a very good point, Big C. I just want to take a 10-minute break to say I want to thank Aurora Trujillo. She's part of the UFC MMA ring card girls, very fit, has a gym in Northern California. Just want to give shouts out to her. She does a lot of training for the UFC and the MMA girls. They're looking for more people to join that circuit. Big C, I also want to get on basketball in the Southland, Los Angeles. You know, we always talk about baseball and how relevant baseball is when the Yankees are on top. We talk about how relevant football is when you have teams like the Giants and the 49ers when they're on top, and the Patriots and the Raiders, them good old boys. Lonzo Ball going to the Lakers. There's so much history, so much pressure. You have the Raptors have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They have Magic Johnson. You have James Worthy, Shaquille O'Neal. You have Kobe Bryant, Big C. What kind of pressure is it put on this young man to say he's going to be the next savior of the team? I think he's going to be a good player, but you have some big mountains to climb, kind of the Mount Rushmore of basketball at the Staples Center, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, he's got less fancy and more from the media, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, growing up in L.A., playing at UCLA,
yeah,
number 1 draft pick of the Lakers, you know, top 3 draft pick.
Yep.
I don't know, Charlton, if he's the savior football player. He's only the second best rookie they have on their team.
Yeah.
But when you look at the Lakers overall, what are the rest of the moving parts?
Yeah.
You know, he's not as physical as a Ben Simmons in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You know, we had 5 rookies thus far with outstanding outings in their opening game, Charlton. I don't know if Ball coming off this ankle industry will have the physicality for the grind of the 82 games of the NBA season. We saw that he couldn't make it through the preseason.
Yeah.
Okay? Now that he's going to be playing against veteran players, Charlton, not the rookies and the guys trying to make the roster, Charlton.
Yeah.
He's going to be playing against established NBA veterans. One thing veterans don't like, Charlton, is a guy who's gotten all the hype.
Yeah.
things that they need to do to keep their establishments in the league. Okay?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, he's a good player. He's
Yeah.
not a great player because this is like we've talked about many players in the past coming in and having an anointment.
Yeah.
He's the chosen one.
Yeah.
You know, LeBron did it 15 years ago. But LeBron had been that prodigy since he was a baby.
Oh, yeah.
Since he was sucking a pacifier.
Yeah.
You know, everybody else, every year we see these great kids. Oh, he's going to be the next great.
Yeah.
Think about the kid that they drafted last year out of Duke, you know, that was going to be the next savior for the Lakers.
Yeah.
Who's much of the physical stature of a ball.
Yeah.
Who looks like he still hasn't gained any weight.
Yep.
And he still hasn't developed into this game exciting player that everybody was expecting. So I see Ball being a middle of the road. Everybody wants to compare him to Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
Jason Kidd was a once in a lifetime passer. You know, it comes along every 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
He hasn't been replicated since then. You think about all the great point guards that have been in the NBA.
Yeah.
You know, since the Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
The only thing that was close to him was John Stockton.
Yep.
Right, as far as the guy distributing the ball and Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Other than that, we got guys, Charlton, that want to make Sports Center. You don't always make it passing the ball.
Big C,
we
just
don't have those technicians anymore at the point.
yeah. Well, Big C, let me get your thoughts for about a minute. Some of the big names that you saw perform well in the first day of NBA opening season basketball. I know we have game one for some teams tonight. Just give me some in a minute or so. Give me your thoughts on who you're impressed by so far. I know it's game one, but you can't really get too much out of it. But just your thoughts on what you see so far, Big C.
Well, Charlton, like you say, it was game one. You know, you had Don Wall taking too many shots in Washington.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that worries me about Washington. Even though they did beat Philadelphia, I like Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Who's actually a rookie this year, but he got paid for last year being hurt. Made $5 million sitting around watching the team play.
That's good.
You know,
Yeah.
You know, I like what Kyrie Irving did.
Yeah.
Chris Paul, you know, I think it's going to be a letdown in Houston. James Harden was still James Harden. Charles.
Yep.
I tell you, LaMarcus Aldridge really impressed me in San Antonio. They were talking about shopping him during the offseason.
Yeah.
The center that they traded in for Portland.
Yeah.
But he went out last night and had a double-double. So that really gave some promise to the San Antonio Spurs. And, you know, they just don't have Kawhi Leonard, but LaMarcus Aldridge may want to play the entire season this year in San Antonio. But the NBA is a long road, Charles,
Yep.
when you think about it. We may see a good game, but it's that consistency. Can you hit that 20, 22 points every night to keep your team in competitive nature, Charles?
That's a very good point. I also went out last week and had a double-double, but mine wasn't on the court as a fast food restaurant, Big C. So I wish I had $5 million to do what they were doing. Hitting double-doubles would be a lot more fun. I want to touch on just real quick a couple of big football games for college football that we'll get on tomorrow, and we'll get into the college rundown for the NFL and college football tomorrow. But two big games I'm going to preview some today and tomorrow. You have Tennessee and Alabama. Alabama obviously is going to be favored in every game, and you know Tennessee right now they just can't seem to get back to the days of when they were always competing for the SEC championship. Could their head coach be in trouble for losing to Alabama? I don't know why anyone would be on the hot seat for losing to the Tide, Big C, but do you think that's some of the rumors coming up down south, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I go back to the opening game of the season and reckon with Kevin Sumlin.
Yeah.
Well, he had a couple of border regions.
Oh, yeah.
His firing at Texas A&M for losing to UCLA.
Yeah.
Now, Butch Davis is 0 for 5 right now at Tennessee. Okay?
Yeah.
Heritage program in the SEC. Just 2 years ago when Philip Farmer won a national championship, the
Yeah.
people said it was time for him to go because he had back-to-back non-winning seasons. Well, non-competitive seasons.
Yeah, non-competitive.
7, 8 games. They figured as non-competitive in the SEC, and they
Yeah.
got rid of him.
Yeah.
But there's been nothing to replicate what Philip Farmer's success has been, and they've gone through 5 coaches since firing him, Charlton.
Yeah.
And Butch Davis is 0-5 starting the season. Tennessee finds ways to lose games.
Yep.
You haven't. This is why we keep talking about why you fire coaches, because there's not 10 great coaches in college football.
No.
You go out and hire people, Charlton, you got to look at who they have to compete with
Yeah.
every week. I don't see much hope for Tennessee. With you think about what Alabama did last week, Charlton.
Yep.
They dismantle opponents every week. You know,
Yeah.
and they're getting better and better. Jalen Hurts only played 2.5 quarters last week, Charlton. That's how dominant he's been with this offense at Alabama when they just destroyed Arkansas.
Yeah.
And so Arkansas is a more competitive team than Tennessee. Tennessee is a team that's down on its emotion. Not
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah.
But emotions.
That's
And
true.
when you lose the way that they lose, Charlton,
Yeah.
you know, they looked up in that first game against Georgia Tech in overtime.
Yeah.
But since then, they've been looking uphill at everybody.
Yeah, it seemed like when Florida hit that game-winning pass at the end with no time left on the clock, they really gone downhill. One of the biggest rivalries in the history of college football. You know how Big C, you say when these teams are on top is good for college football? You have the University of Southern California Trojans, the men of Troy. You have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and touchdown Jesus. You know, in the Bible, Jesus was actually black. This might shock a lot of people, but Revelation chapter 1, verses 14 and 15, in the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 9 and 10 and 6, he had hair, he had skin the color of brass and hair like lamb's wool. But at Notre Dame, they painted him gold. Big C, that's not biblically correct. Give me your thoughts on USC Notre Dame rivalry, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, I think as long as he's been up there on the side of the
Yeah. Hey.
You think about the history of the Notre Dame USC rivalry over the decades, Jonathan.
Yeah.
This has been some of the most exciting football in college football history. I go back to a game back in the 70s when Anthony Davis was the running back for USC. And Notre Dame was crushing them at halftime, 28-0. At the end of that game, it was 52-28 USC. Anthony Davis ran back the second half, opening kickoff, Charlton.
Yeah.
And it was all downhill for Notre Dame from that point.
I remember that game.
The Irish never recovered from that game. But, you know, you think about some of the greatest big games forever. You know, it's like, but you never knew who's going to win in this rivalry, Charlton. When the team is up and down, you know, the upset is always there on the horizon. And you think about it, both teams are coming into this game ranked.
Yeah.
And this hasn't happened for a couple of years. But normally this game is reserved for the last of the year, Charlton.
Yeah.
But this has now become a mid-season slugfest.
Yeah.
And they're going to be at the Coliseum. There's going to be 95,000 people at the Coliseum, Charlton, because Notre Dame travels as well as they have alumni all over the country.
Yeah, both.
So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the game. Notre Dame, Kelly, you think about it, as much as he's been down as a head coach in college football, Charlton, look at the number of players he puts in the NFL. I mean, it parallels Alabama and any other program in the country, Charlton.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I also got to bring up one more thing because I read a lot, Big C, so sometimes people might be offended because we talk about religion and Christianity, and when I hear when Trump starts saying God bless America, the only continent that Jesus Christ ever walked was the African continent. He never walked South America, North America, never walked Russia, China. He only walked the African continent. You can Google that for you Bible historians. I just want you to know that's part of the Big C Sports also. I think he follows Big C Sports on the biggest network in the United States. Big C, two more things I want to touch on. Dodgers. They finally found a way to lose a game, even though they were right there in the thick of things in Chicago, and the manager gets kicked out of the game for the Cubs, and I think he was right, so he argued something that I thought he was right about. But the Dodgers have Kershaw on the mound tonight. I know Kershaw is great, but I like their closers, and I like Yasiel Puig. I love the Cubs and the Dodgers just because of the fanfare with L.A. versus Chicago, the Windy City versus Hollywood. Big C, does it come to an end tonight for the Cubs? And we don't know, but obviously Kershaw is very tough to beat. Big C, your thoughts?
We're talking over the last 2 years. The Cubs have been 5-0 in elimination games, okay?
Yeah.
So this is a team under Joe Madden that doesn't go down easy. So they know how to persevere, and when it's all on the line, is that they know how to stand fast to a game plan, and they proved that last night versus the Dodgers.
Yeah.
They proved that in their previous series against the Nationals. They proved it last year in the World Series against the Cleveland Indians, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when it's all on the line, managers are very crucial.
Yeah.
And we know that last year Kershaw couldn't close it out against the Mets, Charlton.
Yeah.
When he had an opportunity. The Dodgers have fallen short. But you have a 3-1 lead, so you got to give advantage to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And will this be Kershaw of the past in the playoffs last year? Or will this be Kershaw in game 1, Charlton, that he pitched? You know, the Cubs really haven't hit this year, Charlton. In the postseason, they're hitting this one a little over 150.
Yeah.
So all the advantages in the Dodgers' hands for tonight, Charlton. So I like their chances to advance to the World Series.
Well, that should be a great game. No matter who wins that game, it's still a great it was a great atmosphere just going into Wrigley Field, and one of the oldest stadiums in baseball. And all they've done is add a little bit to the fence. I like Fenway Park in Boston. They didn't tear it down and build a new one across town or across the parking lot. So hopefully there'll be a great game tonight in the city of Chicago. They call it the Windy City not because it's windy, but because some of the good old boys in politics. Big C, you can Google that too. You good old boys down south. Big C, out west, we have the Oakland Raiders, and they're playing at home in the Coliseum for one more season next year. year, I believe, is the last season next year. But they're off to a rough start. This is not the season Oakland anticipated having. You know, they have beast mode, they have Crabtree, they have Carr, and they have a great team. They have Navarro Bowman, who is now a part of that linebacking crew to go along with a great linebacking staff, Big C. But I want to get your thoughts, Kansas City coming in town. Alex Smith has had a lot of success. They've beaten the Raiders 5 in a row. I remember talking to some of the owners back the GM for the Kansas City Chiefs back in the day after they had played Oakland, and I asked him, does he and Al Davis have a good conversation? And he said no. And I said, well, why not? And he said he doesn't want one. And I never forget that conversation because these two teams they go way back in the day, Big C. Your thoughts on tonight's game at the Coliseum?
Rivalry.
Yeah.
These are two hated organizations. They literally hate each other.
Yeah.
Over the decades. I mean, you could go back to the 60s when the NFL started and saw the dismay between these two organizations, and it really came to a head, Johnson, in the 70s when they had some of those classic rival games with fights and everything else. But, you know, this is a game tonight when you think about the productivity of Kansas City against the Raiders over the last 2.5 seasons, Johnson.
Yeah.
That they just dominated them. They've gone out and really had their way. The Raiders right now, Johnson, are a team in disarray offensively.
Yeah.
They're only averaging about 17 points a game.
Yeah.
Down to half the point production of what they had last year. They were averaging about 31 points a game last year, Johnson.
Yeah.
But also, this offensive line is not the offensive line they had last year. You think about it, when they brought in beast mode, they expected a lot of productivity, and it's almost like the relationship Peterson had in New Orleans.
They got it blocked.
So we have a passing quarterback, but we're bringing in a running back expecting a ground game.
Yeah.
You don't pay a guy $125 million to hand off the football.
Yeah.
You honestly don't. So they tarnished the relationship right off the bat by giving Carr that huge contract. If they let him play one more year, maybe they could have got him for less with the injury that he's had and the lack of productivity. Amari Cooper has done nothing offensively. You know, #1 draft pick 3 years ago.
Yeah.
He reminds a lot of people of Darius Hayward Bay that Al Davis drafted out of Maryland.
Yeah.
He has a lot of speed and no hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a defense.
Yeah.
They have, through 6 games, 0 interceptions.
Wow.
You're not going to win in the NFL with 0 interceptions, okay?
Yeah.
That's just not a ground for success. And Alex Smith, coming into this game for Kansas City, Charleston, he has not thrown 1 interception this year. Not one.
Wow.
So you think about it, something has to give in this game. Either Alex Smith keeps his streak intact and the Raiders go down, or they get a couple picks on Alex Smith, which will allow them to win the game.
Big C, that's a very good point. You know, we cover the NBA, we cover Major League Baseball, we cover the NFL, the NHL, the UFC, Major League Soccer, WWE, NCAA sports, even your high school sports. Big C, I love this business so much because you're so real. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bondini Brown. He was Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
I'm really looking forward to the games that are going to be played tonight in the NBA, and also what we're getting. There's a game down in Houston that not a lot of people are paying a lot of attention to. University of Houston, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're playing the University of Memphis. The University of Houston football team has beat the last 6 ranked teams that they have played. Even though the coach Tom Herman has gone to Texas, they still have Ward playing quarterback. Memphis is coming in with the 2nd-ranked wide receiver in the country, Charlton. So I'm looking for a very exciting college football game tonight, Charlton. It could be even better than the NFL game.
Well, Big C, always very well said. Really love your knowledge on what's going on with POTUS as well as the world of sports, especially going back in history. You do it like nobody else. And you can hear it every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We always want to tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any woman going through that garbage, please call 911. You know any woman being grabbed by the crotch or sexually assaulted, call 911 because no woman should have to go through that garbage. And we'll talk about it every single program on the Big C Sports Show. And as we say every single time you follow us, we want to tell you that we thank you, that we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.